recording. So guys, what is Selenium? Any idea you have?
Selenium, it's like a tool for automation or
Okay. Tool as in, can you install that in your machine?
we use jar files for that.
Yeah, we use that's a API, right?
API, correct?
Yeah, that is
I
given
just
in the form of jar,
it is in
right?
form
You
of-
will
yeah,
have
we
to
can
import
just
those
download.
jars, import those jars, and then you can use the methods there in jar, and then in that API, right?
Yeah, correct.
Sitara, any idea you have about Selenium?
Yeah, exactly similar in similar lines only. It is an automation tool and needs programming languages to write scripts.
Okay. All right, so that is right. So Selenium is like used for our automation for automating your browser. Okay, so basically Selenium is a API which can be used to automate your browser. Okay, now we have a Selenium suite, right? So in Selenium suite we have other tools also. Selenium suite. So in that we have Selenium, RC, Selenium Webdriver. Then we have Selenium IDE. Then we have Selenium Grid. Okay. So this is the entire suite of Selenium, right? So Selenium RC is actually outdated nowadays. It is not used anywhere. And Selenium WebDriver, that is what we will be learning. So Selenium WebDriver these are the APIs which we will be using for automating our browser. Selenium ID is record and play tool. Record and playback tool. So for this, no programming is required, as in it does not support any programming. And it is a kind of prototype tool. Then Selenium Grid is again automation tool which we can use for doing the parallel testing. So Selenium Grid is used for test execution and for parallel testing. Okay. Now, so talking more about Selenium WebDriver, right? Then what is the history of Selenium? Any idea about the history of Selenium?
No, I don't have any idea.
Okay, I'll tell you bit of the background. So Selenium was first launched as in year 2004. You don't have to read this all, it's just for your reference. So anyways, recording will be there and I'll share the notes also. First launched in 2004. And in 2006, Selenium WebDriver was launched. In 2006. So in 2008, in next release, what the Selenium team has does, they decided to merge all Selenium tools in single family, right? So in order to make the Selenium more powerful, and that version was called Selenium 2.0. So in this, Selenium Webdriver and and Selenium RC was merged. Webdriver and RC were merged. Okay, in 2008. So Selenium 1.0 was having your ID plus your RC plus grid, and Selenium 2.0 was having 2.0 the Selenium 1.0 tool along with Selenium Webdriver. So Selenium 2.0 became more powerful plus Webdriver. Okay, now Selenium 3.0 came. Selenium 3.0 came into market, and that was in year 2016, October 2016. So it is just 5-6 years back. And then we have RC was removed completely. RC deprecated by that time, and we had Selenium ID plus WebDriver, and then grid. Okay, in 2016. Then Selenium 3 is quite common now. I mean, was common until last March. So we were using one version of Selenium WebDriver, that 3.141.59, and I think in last March only they released Selenium 4.0. So a lot of changes were there. So I think March 21 they released Selenium 4.0. However, we will go with this version only of Selenium because this is more stable version. Okay. We will not talk about Selenium RC and all, ID RC. We will directly start with the Selenium WebDriver. Now coming to Selenium WebDriver, what as in what all it has. So it is not IDE. Basically, it is not. When it does not have any IDE. Integrated development environment. It's just APIs. You get it in the form of jar. Okay, so you will have to write your own code. To write your own code for each step, each and every step. Okay. Second thing is, with the help of WebDriver, we can write and execute our test scripts. Okay. And we will be using element locators in that. Element locators. We will talk about this. And WebDriver API commands. API commands to create Selenium test cases. Okay. So Selenium supports various OSs, various browsers and languages. Okay. It supports batch testing, and then data-driven testing, cross-browser testing, and database testing. So it supports batch testing, data-driven testing, cross-browser testing, and then database testing. Okay, so this is pretty much on Selenium WebDriver. Now, what are the drawbacks of WebDriver? What WebDriver cannot do? So since WebDriver does not have any IDE, so it takes more time and effort to write your own script, right? Making sense, guys, this point?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is no ID, so you will have to write your own code and then only you can interact with the browsers. Yeah. So we will use just the APIs which Selenium has given to us. Now there is no built-in repository. There is no built-in repository. Object repository, what we can say in that way. Repo. So as in for each element you will have to identify that using locator, and with the help of locator only you will be like interacting with that element. So for that we will be using page object model. So page object model will have files which will have object repository and action class, action methods. So we will use page object model to store our ORs and action methods. Fine. Now there is no inbuilt report facility. Inbuilt report facility in Selenium. Report facility. So you will have to rely on other third-party tools, like either you will be using any sort of HTML report or a TestNG report, or you will be using extent report. That also you can you can just import this extent report APIs and then you can get the report. And it is little not very difficult, but it is little difficult to configure the environment. I won't say it is too difficult, but it is little difficult to configure the environment if you compare with QTP. Comparing QTP or comparing UFT, as in not QTP, UFT. Okay. Now, what all platforms are supported by Selenium? So platforms supported by Selenium. Now, from OS point of view, it supports MS Windows. It supports Linux and then Macintosh. Mac, right? And then what all browsers it supports? Browser.
Chrome,
Hmm?
IE, Internet Explorer.
Chrome. IE is deprecated now. We have
Now,
Edge.
yeah, deprecated Edge, yeah.
Next.
Mozilla Firefox.
Yeah, Firefox. Next. It supports Safari.
Safari.
It supports Opera. So whatever the browser we have in market, everything it supports. Now, what all programming languages it supports?
Java, Python,
Java,
C
Java,
Python.
Python, C#, then Perl, Ruby, and PHP. Yeah, PHP also it supports. What all testing frameworks it supports? Testing framework. So you can, if you are using Java, you can integrate JUnit or TestNG. JUnit or TestNG. So JUnit was old framework. Nowadays we are using test engine. If you are using Python, you will use PyTest, PyUnit or PyTest, PyUnit, PyTest, Py.test or unit test. If you are using PHP, then you will use bhat plus Mink. If you are using Ruby, then your R spec something I am not sure what it is. And then test colon unit. And then if you are using C#, then it supports an unit. Okay. Since we are working on Java, then we will be using TestNG. Or in case of BDD, we will be using JUnit. Okay. Now, what about the licensing for this Selenium license? Do you need to have any license to use this?
No, it is freeware.
Yeah, it's free, so it's open source and free to
Open
use.
source.
It is open source and free to use, right? So what do you mean by open source?
Like we download the jars, right? So anyone can go and download the jars and use this.
No, use is fine, but what do you mean by open source? So open source as in once you download the jar, you can modify those jars also and use it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can distribute to others. So that is the meaning of open source. Okay. So you can download the jars.
What do we edit in jars?
Edit as in you can write your own methods there.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, that is up to you. Like if you want to scale that up, if you enhance those jars, you can write your own methods there, and then you can build those jars again, and then you can use. So that is the meaning of. So you can download the jars,
Open source.
modify the source code and use it, and you can distribute to others also. Next thing is that selling modified code is not allowed, because that's already free, right? If you are modifying it, you use it for your own betterment. You cannot sell it. Okay. Now advantage, I mean, we already talked about advantage. So it's open source. It supports various operating systems or operating environments, supports various browsers. It supports various programming platforms. It supports parallel testing. It uses very less hardware resources. Now we'll talk about disadvantages of Selenium. What are the disadvantages? Disadvantage as in it does not support desktop application. It supports only web-based application. It does not support desktop apps. Just supports web apps. So no object repository, no built-in object repository, object repo, no reporting facility, then no some difficulties, as in I don't see much difficulty, but there are some difficulty in configuring environment. Then we have takes time to create our own scripts. So these are the disadvantages, as in bookish language, but one more disadvantage they tell is like not much support is available. So that I don't think that is correct, because it's like quite widely used uh, you know APIs or jars. So you can there is already a large community available, so you can get the help from anyone. So from that support point of view, I don't see that's a disadvantage. Now, how will I uh, start writing the framework? So for that, I will use Eclipse as ID, right? So I'll use Eclipse as ID. I'll use programming as Java, and then I'll use test tool. That will be my WebDriver along with Java bindings. Okay, now test framework would be my TestNG. Then build automation tool would be my Maven, right? So we will be using Maven, and for CI/CD we will be using Jenkins. Okay. So this would be my end-to-end designing of test cases, followed by running the test. So right now, next is what is next? Okay, now we will set up the environment. So for that,